I'm Andy with Competitive Cyclist, and this is my shootout of the Zipp 303S and ENVE 45 wheel sets. When you think about carbon wheels, ENVE and Zipp are the first two names that come to mind. I spent the better part of the last 20 years on one or the other. The first set I owned from either brand was the aluminum-rimmed Zipp 404 clincher, which they gave me as a long-term tester with the intent that I'd beat them to death for a year. And I did. And when I sent them back a year later, they were as round and as true as the day I got them. Since then, I've owned basically everything they make: 202, 303, 404, pre and post Firecrest, and in tubular, clincher, and tubeless. My first pair of ENVEs came a little later in the summer of 2015. They were a set of 3.4 SES clinchers on DT hubs, and then I had two sets of 4.5 SESs, and I'm currently rolling two sets of AR SES disc wheels along some newer 45s, this time with Chris King hubs. Being fully transparent, the reason I made the big shift to ENVE is that I had a guy on the inside and my pricing on their wheels blew Zipps out of the water by like hundreds of dollars. And they even sent me a pair of 45s for free when I launched my personal YouTube channel back in 2020. And I beat that wheel set to death on road and gravel bikes for 4 straight years, with the only issue being some corroded nipples due to sealant leakage and my not so fantastic taping skills. They're fast in the flats, they climb flawlessly, and even though I have ENVE's higher end SESs on other bikes, the 45s never leave me feeling like they're not as good. Aside from a slightly narrower inner rim width, they're dang close to ENVE's premium wheels. The 303S is the replacement for the value-oriented 302, and it's built around Zipp's Total System Efficiency, or TSE technology, which is based on a design philosophy that addresses wind resistance, rolling resistance, gravity, and vibration, the 4 forces that are barriers to speed. In addition to the already slippery rim profile, Zipp uses hookless tire technology to reduce turbulence at the edge where the tire meets the rim. They've also transformed their carbon layout process to yield a 30% reduction in the weight of the rims. That's up to 200 grams per wheel, mostly at the rim, which is a massive reduction in rotational weight. And all of the wheels in the TSE lineup have wider internal rim widths to accommodate wider tires and lower pressures. The 303S has a 23mm inner width, which is a sweet spot for both road and gravel applications. So at $1,400 for either set, we're starting off on an equal footing. They're also nearly identical in weight at just over 1,500 grams, and both wheel sets feature hookless tech and in-house hubs with high-quality stainless steel bearings and aero spokes. And the rim shape, also nearly identical according to my calipers. The Zipps do seem to be a little rounder on the inside, but where they truly pull away from the ENVEs is the inner rim width. Look, I know it's only 2 millimeters, but when you combine that small gain with the rounder inner rim, the smaller contact patch, and a lighter carbon rim, you get a wheel set that's faster both on paper and in the real world. The 303s spent equal time on my road and gravel bikes. The road setup was identical to the 45s that I tested. I had 30C Conti GP 5000s on both sets. And the gravel setup was 38C IRC Boken Pluses that I switched back and forth. And even though it's only 2 millimeters, I keep coming back to that, I could feel the difference in the way the tire contacted the ground and handled through the corners. And the slightly smaller contact patch it created made a noticeable difference during high-speed efforts on the tarmac. Look, I don't have my own wind tunnel or a rolling road to verify these claims, but based on literally thousands of miles on the 45s over the past 4 years, I can tell you for certain, the 303Ss have the edge. The Zipps also unexpectedly won on the customer service front, and here's what I mean. The 303Ss come out of the box with tubeless tape and valves installed. That was a really nice surprise. ENVE makes you clean the inner rim with alcohol pads and install everything yourself or have a shop do it, which could add to the cost. And if this is your first big upgrade and your first venture into tubeless, and if you decide to do it yourself, let me be the first to tell you, learning how to do tubeless right is a process with a high failure rate for the first few tries. So I just don't get why ENVE isn't setting you up for success out of the box like Zipp. I think it has something to do with liability, but isn't there more risk of someone having an accident because they messed up the self-install? I don't know. It's a head scratcher. So I guess it's obvious. The 303Ss win this one, but it was close. Like they won by a field goal in overtime. ENVE is literally 2 millimeters and maybe some pre-installation of some tape away from being just as good. As a parting shot, I have to share that the best part of this test was being reminded of the overall ride quality of Zipp wheels. Don't get me wrong. ENVE makes phenomenal wheels, and the 45s are a worthy upgrade if you're looking to ditch your stock wheels and go tubeless. But the Zipps, for lack of a better term, just hit different. They're less harsh, more lively, a little quieter, and they feel more stable in a crosswind. I think I'll be holding on to these 303s for a while. And now let's get Jono up here to ask me a few questions about my experience with these wheel sets.
All right, so we're here. I got a few questions about both wheels.
All right, can't wait. This is my favorite part, by the way. I love this.
The Q&A?
Yeah, the Q&A. The other stuff, like writing the scripts and reading it, that's fine. But I love this part, because it's like off the cuff.
Nice. All right, so tubeless tires, they can be tough to mount. These are both hookless rims. So was one easier than the other to mount a tire?
I hate to say it, but the Zipps were easier to mount for some reason. I don't know if it's that they're just slightly smaller or what, but I've installed, like I said, I've had 45s forever. This would be like my third set of them. And I can even remember going back several years to a pair of 303 Firecrest that you guys sent me. Those were easier to install as well. And they, like the setup and the, when you do tubeless, sometimes they don't stay inflated overnight. You come back out in the garage and they're flat. The Zipps, I did not have that problem with them at all. ENVEs, usually it's a process of adding sealant, shake them around, air them up, overpressure, air them up, sealant. And Zipps just like, they beat it up the first time I popped them on. They held air overnight, whereas the ENVEs took a little more work.
And could you set them both up with floor pump, or did you need an air compressor?
Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right?
Yeah.
Like, I bought an air compressor years ago, a big one, and I never use a pump anymore. I've got one of those air shot pumps, or whatever they're called. Yeah, chambered pumps. Just a lot of work.
Okay.
So could
get
you
an air compressor?
Yeah, get an air compressor. But could you do it with the Zipps? Probably. With the ENVEs, I wouldn't want to try it. I'd want to have an air compressor for the ENVEs.
Okay, good to know. As far as hubs go, which one has better engagement? Could you notice that at all between the two?
Yep. I noticed that the engagement on both of them was really close. I didn't really notice engagement until I put the Zipps on, and it was because the Zipps didn't engage quite as well as the ENVEs. Okay. Maybe it's because I've been riding ENVEs for so long that I'm just kind of used to it, but it felt just a couple of clicks, a couple of degrees off, like they need to add a few more pawls and a few more ridges in there to make it engage faster.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well with the Zipps. I've had those wheels, and you really notice it on the gravel bikes. So if you're doing that with an all-road wheel set or something like that, all-road bike, I should say, yeah, you're gonna notice it for sure. It's
not enough to sway me one way or the other, but yeah, to your point, lower speeds, steeper climbs where you really want that thing to engage fast, it goes to the ENVE for sure.
Nice. Which one is more efficient when you're freewheeling? Could you notice that?
Oh, that's a great question.
I would think, based off of the engagement conversation, I would guess that the Zipps feel a little bit more efficient, but.
I don't know. The Zipps felt more efficient when they were coasting, and I think a lot of that came down to the fact that it's got that wider rim bed. It's just naturally going to be faster.
The lower pressure you can run.
Yeah, exactly. Bearings felt generally like almost exactly the same. Yeah, it's very close.
Okay.
Not so much that you even really notice between one or the other.
When it comes to durability, longevity, have you had to replace the bearings in either wheel set?
When I had those Zipps that I had forever, way back in the day, never had any issues with bearings. And that was when I was in Arkansas and I was riding through all kinds of conditions, summer, spring, winter, fall. Same with ENVEs. I've had ENVE hubs, DT hubs. I've got King hubs now. My original set was in-house ENVE hubs, and that was, 3.5, 4 years of worry-free riding. Zipps, same way. I've never, ever had a single bearing issue in my, 15 or 20-year history with Zipp.
Good. Yeah. So either way, you're good there. Bearings, it comes down to where you're riding and what you're riding and just random luck, really.
No doubt, yeah, no doubt.
If you were to have one wheel set, if you had an all-road bike, which one would you pick? Which one's better for gravel tires and road tires?
I got to go with the Zipp, simply because it's got that wider rim, it's got that wider profile. It's a smoother riding wheel, but that smoothness doesn't affect the responsiveness and the snappiness when you're on the road. ENVEs, for me, have always been just a little more harsh and a little more, I don't know, tinny and not quite as smooth as the Zips. It's a nuanced thing that a lot of riders won't really notice, but I think the best riding all-around wheel, again, goes to the Zipp. However, if this wheel was 2, 3, 4 millimeters wider,
then it's like a tie.
it's a dead heat,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, with gravel tires, people are wanting wider and wider, like you want a wider rim to go with that, so it makes sense.
Honestly, if I was gonna buy anything right now, it would be the even newer Zips that have that, what is it, a 27?
Yeah, the really wide ones,
Yeah, the really
Explorer.
wide ones, the Explorer. Yeah. That would be what I would get. But between these two, 303S is for sure.
Sweet. And last but not least, hub noise. It's a big factor in a lot of people's wheel buying decisions. So in your opinion, which one sounds better?
So I ride Kings on just about everything, and we all know how Chris King's sound is sort of a divisive thing. Either you love it or you hate it. I've always loved it. The Zipp, kind of close to that without being as loud. Here, check this out. I'll hold it close to my mic.
There we go.
You didn't
say a little ENVE here.
ENVE's it's a little deeper, a little throatier. It's a toss-up. On the road, the Zipp seemed to be a little more muted, a little bit quieter.
Okay.
But it's two different sounds, and to each his own, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think I go with the ENVE. Yeah, definitely ENVE for me.
All right, it's a symphony of freewheels here.
Yeah. All right, so if you have any more questions about either of these wheel sets, you can reach out to one of our gearheads today. And if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you at the next gear review.
Thanks, Jono.